Previously on Grasses and Classes. Last month's lesson was all about erosion. We reviewed the definition of erosion and learned about shoreline erosion, which is the temporary or permanent loss of sand from a shore, beach, or dune. We learned how wind, waves, and storms naturally erode a shore, and how humans contribute to shoreline erosion through construction, seawalls, and the removal of native plants. CBA and AmeriCorps worked to restore shorelines by planting smooth cordgrass and building oyster reefs. When we plant Spartina alterniflora along the shoreline, its strong roots help hold the soil in place and prevent the shoreline from washing away. Oyster reefs also help to build back the shoreline. Do you remember how? Why else are oyster reefs important? What is an oyster? What do they do? Tune in to the 5th lesson of Grasses and Classes to find out.
Welcome back, explorers. Most of our previous lessons have focused on the star of the class, that special grass, smooth cordgrass. But what makes it so special?
Remember our 3 important reasons. It provides a habitat for small animals, it filters and absorbs pollution from stormwater runoff, and it helps prevent erosion.
When we plant this special grass, we create a living shoreline. How would you define a living shoreline? Pause the video now to discuss.
A living shoreline is a shoreline that promotes life and provides a habitat. They include parts like smooth cordgrass and oyster reefs. They are also places where animals can make a home, unlike seawalls that are made of non-living things like concrete or steel. We've talked a lot about smooth cordgrass already, so let's learn more about the role oyster reefs can play in a living shoreline.
Do you remember how oyster reefs help restore the shoreline? Pause the video now to discuss.
Oyster reefs create a natural barrier that slows wave energy while still allowing water to pass through. This helps prevent sediment from being washed away from the shore. At the same time, sediment carried by the waves gets trapped behind the reef and helps to build the shoreline, reversing erosion.
But oyster reefs do more than just help prevent erosion and restore the shoreline. What else are oyster reefs important for? Pause the video now to discuss.
In addition to fighting erosion, oyster reefs create a hard location for young oysters to settle and provide a habitat for creatures like fish, snails, crabs, and shrimp. Oyster reefs also play an essential role in maintaining a healthy estuary environment. An estuary is where the river meets the sea, or where fresh water meets salt water to create brackish water. Do you remember the name of our local estuary? Pause the video now to discuss.
The Choctawhatchee Bay, of course. I knew you knew that. Globally, oyster reefs are one of the most threatened habitats. What does it mean to be globally threatened? Pause the video now to discuss.
When a species is globally threatened, it means around the world the population is not doing well and is at risk of going extinct. Around the world, we are losing more oyster reefs than coral reefs, seagrass beds, or mangrove forests. In fact, worldwide, we have lost 85% of our oyster reefs in the last 200 years. That's why it's so important to take care of our oysters. Did you know there are over 200 different species of oysters spread throughout the world? The type of oyster found in our bay is called the eastern oyster. Like all oysters, the eastern oyster is a bivalve. What do you think a bivalve is? Pause the video now to discuss.
Think of a bicycle. A bicycle has 2 wheels, so bi means 2. And what does an oyster have 2 of? It has 2 shells. These shells are connected by what is known as a hinge. So a bivalve is an animal that has 2 hinged shells.
Oysters are mollusks. Mollusks are invertebrates, which means they don't have a backbone. They have soft bodies and they live in damp or watery environments, and most make their own shell. What are some other examples of mollusks? Pause the video now to discuss.
Mussels, clams, snails, and octopuses are all examples of mollusks.
If we can find oysters in our bay, what kind of water do they live in? Pause the video now to discuss. The Choctawhatchee Bay has brackish water, a mixture of salt water and fresh water. That means oysters live in brackish water. They prefer a salinity range of 14 to 28 ppt. Oysters are also filter feeders. What do you think that means? Pause the video now to discuss.
As a filter feeder, an oyster takes in water, filters out its food, and then releases cleaner water back into the bay. Oysters eat phytoplankton, detritus, and algae suspended in the water. Phytoplankton are microscopic or tiny marine plants. Detritus is the broken down dead material of plants and animals. Oysters naturally improve the water quality by eating these things, which would otherwise cloud up the water. Did you know one adult oyster can filter up to 50 gallons of water in one day? Imagine going home and drinking 50 gallons of milk. That's pretty impressive for one oyster. Oysters are stationary animals, which means that once they are settled, they cannot move. If the water they live in becomes too polluted, they cannot escape. Polluted water can harm the oyster and fill it with pollution as well. This can make the oysters dangerous to eat or can kill the oysters.
This is one reason why smooth cordgrass and oyster reefs work so well together. As the smooth cordgrass absorbs pollution from stormwater runoff, it keeps our oysters healthy so that they can keep feeding, growing, and cleaning the water.
Now that we know how important oysters are, let's learn about their life cycle.
The cycle begins with an egg. Female oysters release the eggs into the water for fertilization. Once an egg is fertilized in the water, it develops into a larva. Oyster larvae are planktonic, which means they are free-floating. Larvae are like jellyfish because they can only go where the water takes them. When a larvae develops a foot, it's finally ready to settle on a hard surface. Remember, larvae can't choose where they go, so they must settle on whatever surface they find first. This is why you often see oysters growing on bridge pilings, docks, and trash in the water.
Do you think oysters like to settle on trash or sweeps in the water? Where would you prefer to settle if you were an oyster? Pause the video now to discuss.
Of course, oysters don't like to settle on trash. Oysters are gregarious settlers, which means they like to settle on each other. This is how oyster reefs continue to grow and thrive.
Once settled, a larva becomes a spat. In this stage, young oysters develop their hard shells. Eventually, a spat grows into an adult oyster that can release eggs of its own, starting the cycle all over again.
Now that we've learned about the life cycle, let's use a song to help us remember about all the life stages of an oyster. I believe you know Baby Shark, so sing along.
Oyster egg doo 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 doo, oyster egg doo 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 doo, oyster egg doo 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 doo, oyster egg. Floating larva doo 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 doo, floating larva doo 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 doo, floating larva doo 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 doo, floating larva. Oyster spat doo 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 doo, oyster spat doo 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 doo, oyster spat doo 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 doo, oyster spat. Adult oyster doo 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 doo, adult oyster doo 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 doo, adult oyster doo 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 doo, adult oyster. Oyster reef doo 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 doo. Oyster reef doo 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 doo. Oyster reef doo 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 doo. Oyster reef.
Great job with the song. That's a pretty cool song, but oysters are even cooler. They've been around going through their life cycle for millions of years. Fossilized oysters can be found in mines across the Florida peninsula.
There are also fossilized oysters in the desert in the western plains of the United States. That tells us all of these areas used to be underwater. Today we are going to learn about the different parts of the oyster by creating our own oyster model using a recycled oyster shell. The materials you will need is an oyster shell, a bag of materials representing oyster organs. These materials will include a pink sheet of paper, an orange sheet of paper, a cotton ball, a string, and a sticker. You will also need scissors and glue. The shell on your desk is a recycled oyster shell we got from a restaurant. Don't worry, we made sure it's clean. Your shell should be oriented with the hinge closer to you. The hinge is where the two shells would have been connected. It's usually the smallest part of the shell. Make sure your shell is oriented correctly. We are first going to look at the gill. The gill is the first part that water flows through. From the water, the gill absorbs oxygen that the oyster needs to live. The gill is represented by the orange sheet of paper. You will need to cut it out. But once you have cut it out, you are not done. Gills have ridges, so we will create those by folding on these little lines in accordion style. You will fold it one way on one line, the other way on the next line, back and forth. Then you will unfold it and you have your ridges. Now we need to orient our gill. The pointy end of the gill will go towards the hinge. The fatter part will curve towards that black dot on your shell. If you have a shell that looks like this one, all you will need to do is flip over your paper. Once again, the pointy end is towards the hinge and the fat part is curving towards your black dot. Now we need to glue it down. The best way to do that is to put the glue directly on the shell where you want to glue it. Then you can put your piece of paper down, give it a few taps to make sure it's stuck on the glue. Pause the video now to complete your gill. Next is the digestive gland, which secretes enzymes that help the oyster digest its food. The digestive gland is represented by the pink sheet of paper. You will need to cut this out and then place it on your shell to know where you need to put your glue. The bottom of the digestive gland should almost touch the pointy end of the gill. Once again, we will place the glue on the shell first, and then put our piece of paper down. Pause the video now to complete your digestive gland. Next is the palp, which is like the mouth. It takes in particles for digestion or pushes particles out. This is the part of the oyster that sorts through everything in the water. It's the reason why oysters are such good filters. The palp is represented by your sticker. Your sticker can be one of many colors.
You will just need to peel it, and you will stick it down where the pointy end of the gill and your digestive gland are close together. Pause the video now to complete your palp.
Next is the stomach. The stomach is where digestion occurs. It goes across the digestive gland since the digestive gland releases enzymes that help the stomach with digestion.
The stomach is represented by the string. This will go from the palp across the digestive gland to the edge of the shell. Once again, we will place the glue on the shell first. We are going to try to get 2 loops in our stomach. So I'm putting extra glue where I want my loops. This is hard, so if you cannot get loops in your stomach, that's okay. You can either make 1 loop or make it a straight line. Now I have excess stomach, so I am going to trim it with scissors. Pause the video now to complete your stomach.
Finally, the adductor muscle. This is a muscle that is attached to both shells of the oyster. It allows the oyster shell to open and close.
The adductor muscle is represented by the cotton ball. This will go where your dark spot on your shell is. This is actually the scar from the original adductor muscle. Once again, we will place glue on our shell and then place our cotton ball. Pause the video now to complete your adductor muscle. This is how our final oyster should look. Now that we're done, we can gently place our oyster shell into our paper bag to dry and to take home with us.
For the last part of our lesson, let's see how well oysters filter water.
Here we have 2 tanks that we have added oyster feed to. One tank has oysters and one has a regular fish tank filter. We videoed them for an hour and then sped it up so we could see it all happen in 30 seconds. In your notebook, there's a spot for you to draw what the tanks look like at the beginning of the video and at the end. Which was the better filter? Pause the video now to draw your observations and discuss. How amazing are oysters? As you can see from our before and after pictures, our oysters filter the water much better than the regular filter. This is why we want oysters in our bay to filter the water. Well, explorers, I hope you learned a lot about oysters, their importance, and why we use them to build oyster reefs in our living shorelines. Until next time, keep exploring.